So it's important as educators to know that our focus should not be on our employers as our source. They will pay you for your services, but nobody can pay you for your worth.
Welcome back to Global Student Voices. I'm Coach Martin, and today I'm joined by Olamitoyosi Babatunde from Nigeria. She's head of school at Pampers Private School in Lagos, where they've been raising children both academic excellence and moral grounding since 1983. Olamitoyosi is also the published author of The Lady and Her Purse and the voice behind Community of Educators Making a Difference. Olamitoyosi, thank you so much. It's a joy to have you on the show.
Thank you, Scott, for having me. It's a joy to be here.
Take us back a little bit because I just want people to get to know you a little bit. I've been stalking you a little bit online, so I know more about you than other people might. But take us back to kind of how did you get into education and education the way you do it? And give us a little backstory.
It's an interesting story. Every time I have to say it, it just takes me back memory lane. So I used to think that I couldn't be an educator. I thought I wasn't patient enough. I thought I wanted to make money and all that. Now, my mom is a retired educator as well. So we had that experience of what it was like to be a teacher, working in the government school, and all that.
Sure.
But then, two things actually led me into education. First, I often had people ask me to tutor their children. It started with my brother asking me to help him with one of the subjects he was struggling with in a school living certificate examination. And I did. Then I had just finished myself, but I passed all my papers in one sitting. So my brother went, "Oh, sis, you're good with English. Why don't you teach me? That's the subject I keep having issues with." And I did. And he was very patient. He did every assignment. And that was the last time he had to sit for that examination. He passed. And then I had other students as well from neighbors, friends. And then I realized as I worked with many of them that the major issue was foundational for most of them,
Mm,
in fact, for all of them. So I thought I could make a difference in the lives of those who would come through me. That was one. The second thing was during my NYSC. There is a compulsory 1 year service that every graduate has to do here in Nigeria, and I worked in the TV station as a presenter. But because I studied foreign languages, my program was to present French, teaching elementary school students. I studied Russian, but French was my second foreign language. And since that had more audience in the north where I served, that was what the TV wanted me to present. So I presented to primary school children, and I loved the experience. I loved working with them. So when I finished my 1 year compulsory service, I found a job in a school thinking, okay, I'll just do this for a year or two and I'll stop. Because again, in our church, we are just like a children's church, and I was part of the board. I was also the youngest member of the board. So I felt, okay, since I'm looking for a job right now, others are engaged, why don't I get formal training by working in a school for a year or two? Well, this is almost 2 decades and I'm still here.
Isn't that funny how that happens? It
It
just,
is. So I
you
like to
land
say
on,
education found me.
yeah, and it wouldn't let you go. It grabs you.
It did.
That's amazing. So,
Thank you.
what has been kind of the catalyst? Like, I get the motivation, like the motivation not to teach because of financially and there's just a lot. It's a lot of pressure, and it's just it's hectic and it's difficult, and the rewards aren't tangible. So, what has kept you in education for these 20 years?
Okay, so I'd say that sometimes I don't really stop to look at the challenges as problems. I often see them as challenges to be overcome. Do you understand my point? So in my first year, for instance, I had special needs child in my class who had hearing difficulty, and the parents didn't even know that this child had this difficulty. They thought she was just stubborn when they would speak to her and she wouldn't respond. Sometimes she would respond, sometimes she wouldn't. This child was just 2 years old. What they didn't know was that she couldn't hear in one ear, but she could hear in the other one. And so the times she responded were the times when they spoke to
Right, this side.
the one that was working. And then the other times were the times where they spoke to the other ear and she didn't know that she was being spoken to. But I discovered that in class from working with the children individually. I noticed that sometimes she would respond, sometimes she wouldn't. So one day I just realized that, okay, when I was working with another child on her other side, she was responding. But when it was, so I was going round, when it was
Yeah.
her turn and I sat on the other side, she didn't respond. So I clapped, and then I realized that no matter how loudly I clapped on one side, she wouldn't flinch. But the other one, she would react immediately.
Yeah.
So I took it upon myself. One, I spoke to the school management, the parents were invited, and today that was what saved that child because they immediately got her the recommended treatment and all that till she began to wear a cochlear implant, and that helped. Now, apart from that, I felt she had to learn like every other child in the class. So I went online, I joined groups for special needs teachers and all sorts of groups. And I would ask questions. Who has a child or a pupil with this kind of challenge? How do you work with them? How do you teach them? And that became my modus operandi, even for the rest of the class. I would study each child's personality and build their learning around that. I would study their habits, what time they came in, and build their learning around it. What was interesting was I did not study education actually, I studied foreign languages. The only thing I'd done in education before then was teaching Russian teaching methodology, how to teach Russian, like how to teach a foreign language. That was all I had learned. But maybe because my mom is a retired educator, my older sister studied education and we stayed together in the university. So sometimes she would come back and just tell me about her day. Oh, we learned this in the faculty today. We learned this. I realized that the class that made a lot of impact, or two classes from my sister's classes that made a lot of impact that I followed more, were early childhood and special needs education. And those are the things I end up doing today. So each time I would come across a need that a learner had, my goal was how can I teach this child? How can I support this child? So because I kept thinking more of the learners I met, I didn't have a chance to think about leaving or what problems I was having per se. And I think that's what still keeps me helping the learners and, of course, helping my team as well. Teachers, staff in all the schools I've led know that when I learn something, I will come back and teach everybody. Like one of my leaders said one year, she said, you, when you're with Miss Babatunde, you have to learn, whether you like it or yes. She would not leave anybody behind, and that's the truth. So in the midst of all of that, I don't
Yeah.
have
So
time to
just
think about leaving.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's and so basically taking that same mentality that you discovered in your first in that first learning experience with that student and you've now applied it even into your leadership. So you're essentially building curriculum for each of your teachers as if they were your students and sharing the new things and as you discover and they ask questions and then your curiosity. So that curiosity, holding on to that curiosity and letting that drive your education as kind of a lifelong principle for you.
Yes.
So I suspect that your teachers capture this same energy and that your students do as well. Are there specific strategies you have to help awaken that curiosity and help students and teachers to hold on to that curiosity that's within all of us?
Yes, so there's something I have come to know as voice of reason. Sometimes we think, oh, this is good for this person, and we just want to impose it on them. When you come that way as a leader, you're going to lose the team before you even get started. So, what I do is to show them the challenge at the moment, show them what is not working or what is underperforming, and then paint a picture of where we could be if we follow a certain plan or we do a certain thing. And it almost often works, almost every time.
Wow.
Occasionally, you might have people ask questions, but there's something about painting a picture. When
Yeah.
people can see it in their mind's eye, it becomes easier for them to believe you, it becomes easier for them to follow. And oftentimes, they'd even pitch in. Now,
Yeah.
once I have put in the voice of context and voice of reason, and people buy into the idea, we can move on. But sometimes people will have their own ideas, their own suggestions, their own modifications. Now, one thing as a goal getter, a visionary leader, is you may be tempted to shoot down the ideas that come in because you
Mhm.
feel, no, I know the complete picture, right? I know the
Yeah.
picture that is in my head, and I don't think that your ideas are worth any merit or will contribute to the larger goal. I think they will take us away. But that's wrong. I listen and I sometimes say, oh, I'll get back to you. I'll give you some thought. And then I might come back to say, oh, based on this feedback, we are going to modify.
Yeah.
And then I would accommodate some of the ideas from the others. We put everything together. What often happens is we then have a better result. So those are the two main strategies that I use. I paint a picture and I listen.
Pardon the interruption. Thanks for listening to this episode of Global Student Voices. We're glad you're here. We try really hard to provide good content for international school leaders, parents, and students. But to know what you want to hear, we need to hear from you. So please reach out and let us know what you'd like to hear next. Now, back to the show. Yeah, that's huge. One of the things I discovered as principal was that sometimes I would get stuck trying to come up with the perfect solution from all of these ideas and all of my own research. And really, it was better. We had more success when we used an imperfect idea, but there was passion, and it was a teacher's idea.
Yes.
Like then they were more invested in it. Even if I presented a better idea to the group, and I think it would have worked better. It didn't work better because it wasn't theirs.
Yes, you're right.
Because it's theirs, and even if it's modified by my input, and I encourage reading, or look at this site and see how it works, it was still better to do the things and then get better year to year than to wait until it got better to start. One of the things that we're observing, and I work with a group called Joy Ed Global, and one of the things that we've observed is that the joy, and sometimes the joy has come out of education. And I don't sense from you that that's a problem in your setting, that there's lots of joy in education, and even in your Instagram community, educators that making a difference, that feels like a very joyful community. Am I right?
It is so. There would always be challenges, no matter where you find yourself. And one thing I have noticed, having spoken to educators and school leaders in different parts of the world, is that we have similar challenges. We have similar situations and all that. So yes, we also have challenges, numerous challenges, and we all know that education doesn't pay as highly as some other professions will pay, even with the same years of experience. So you have cost of living, you have personal struggles, financial struggles on other side, family, you have work demands. You live in a place like Nigeria, for instance, you have power issues, you have standards of living, everything is there. But you choose joy all the same. So on my own as a team lead, I try to make my people love coming to work. I tease, I joke, I play with them. Sometimes I play pranks on them.
Yeah.
Yes, I do that sometimes, and it's fun. In fact, on Friday, we're on holiday today. Today is Children's Day for us, and it's also a religious holiday, another holiday. So we'll be back in school on Friday. There are two different kinds of content I plan to record with my teachers, and it's just about having fun in the school. So sometimes we need to remember that we spend a lot of hours together, meaning that we spend a good portion of our lives together. It helps us and our team when we make those times happy and enjoyable.
Yeah.
I would hardly shout on my team, for instance.
Yeah.
It's like I'll say to them, we are adults, so why would I raise my voice at you? Even if you don't get something right, we can always work it out. We can always redo. So there would be challenges, but we make up our minds to enjoy where we are at every point in time, no matter what the challenge is.
Yeah, that's huge. That's the big lesson for this one, for leaders, is that it's so critical to, if you're going to have a joyful school. And we know that research is very clear that the best learning happens in joyful settings. Like that's where students learn best. That leadership has to come from the top. Not everything is top down in terms of leadership, but joy, I think, is. And so that's huge. You mentioned something in among the challenges that I want to make sure, and I hope we'll get to record more episodes, but if we only get this one, I want to make sure that people hear from you.
Okay.
You wrote a book called The Lady and Her Purse, and it ties to this challenge for educators. We have to be smarter. We're not gonna have the most money, so we have to
Mhm.
be smarter with our money. So tell us a little bit about your book and kind of maybe a big takeaway that we can share with our listeners today, and then they're going to go buy the book. So we'll make sure we have links so they can buy a copy, but give us a takeaway from The Lady in Her Purse.
Okay, so early on in my marriage, I realized that something as simple as school fees was a project. Like we had to plan and save, and then we had just one child, and then
Yes, I lost you there for a bit. Did you lose power?
we're actually on the inverter before, but it's off now. Okay, so I realized that if that was happening for one child, then when we had more, it was going to be more challenging. Okay, and then I sat down, I began to learn, had a lot of reading, research, and all that just to work on my financial literacy. So, in the midst of that, I learned to do a yearly budget. By the time I did my budget for the coming year, I realized that my salary was not enough to sustain me as a person or as a mom or a married person. Now, I loved my job I was already a school leader. I loved my job either as a teacher. Okay, I was first a teacher when I started and then, of course, a school leader. I loved my job. So, leaving education was not an option that even came to
Okay.
me. So, instead, I thought of what I could do to make other income without leaving my job. And that's what has helped me over the years. There are several other things you can do. Um, I have online courses now. I have online courses. I have my book. I'm working on a couple of other books. I facilitate trainings, sessions, conferences. I train, consult for schools. I create social media content for a few schools. Now I have a virtual assistant that supports me because again I have my regular job. But what I'm saying is, and I've had to say that to my team as well, you can't always depend on your employer as an educator to provide all that you need. In a few weeks, I'll be traveling for an international school leaders conference. That money had to come from somewhere. If I depended solely on my salary with all the things that I need to do, I may not be able to save up for that conference in time to meet the deadline. So it's important as educators to know that our focus should not be on our employers as our source. They will pay you for your services, but nobody can pay you for your worth.
Yeah,
So you have to work on that.
that's
And there's
fantastic.
nothing wrong with an educator
That's
being
fantastic.
wealthy. It's not only businessmen and and bank
Yeah.
executives and all that who should be wealthy. Teachers can be wealthy too.
Yes. That's fantastic. And so if you're listening to this episode, find her courses. We'll have links to the ways you can get a hold of Babatunde, but we want to make sure that you can get her book and maybe do a course. Maybe follow her on all the social media so that she can monetize all of that. Let's make sure that you can have the resources you need to continue to do the good work that you're doing. I really want to encourage school leaders, if you are working on your school culture and wanting to make it more joyful so that your students just love coming to school every day. This is the consultant that you want to help you get there, to get closer. So thank you so much for being on the episode, and we will have to do this again sometime.
And well done to you and your team as well for the great job you do.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, we'll have all the links in the show notes. If you're a school leader or parent and you've heard something in this conversation that has stirred you, make sure you act on it while it's still fresh. Let us know how you are doing in your communities. Let us know what's working well for you. We want to highlight that for the greater international school and education community. We love you. We love hearing from you, and we will see you in the next episode. Thanks again. I'm so grateful you stayed till the end. This was a great episode, and I hope it was really helpful to you. Again, we'd love to hear your feedback, but we also wanted to make you aware of some of the other ways that you can connect with Global Student Solutions. Global Student Voices is a service of Global Student Solutions. We also provide books and resources like you see behind me, as well as a variety of other services, educational content, and consulting. So we would love to connect with you. And at the very least, if you can follow us and subscribe on our YouTube channel. We also have a membership program coming up, and we'd like you to be the first member. So let us know, get your name on the list, and we'll make sure that you're the first to join the membership community. Thank you and have a great day.